Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 14 of the Orville, entitled The Road Not Taken. For all intents and purposes, this is the Season 2 finale of the Orville, and it was something special indeed. It was quite epic, I gotta say, from the visual effects to the score, both of which were kind of a marriage, an homage between the two franchises of Star Wars and Star Trek. All throughout the episode, I was largely reminded of so many different aspects of both franchises between the music and the visuals, especially that whole asteroid field chase, which harkened back to The Empire Strikes Back, and there's almost an underlying aspect of commentary to this episode. That is to say, you know, if Star Trek is anything other than Star Trek, it's Star Wars. And what a grand, interesting bit of commentary that is, whether biting or complimentary is, you know, one's own sort of perspective. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, after all. And but I just thought it was really interesting how well. You know, if you look at the finale for Star Trek Discovery Season 2, which has been coinciding very much on the same night every night in the past, you know, several handful of weeks, there are oft comparisons made. Even I myself draw certain comparisons from time to time as I observe them and they occur to me. And you have sort of the right example of an homage and a feel, a look, a vibe, and a feel to the action set pieces, paying homage to Star Trek, paying homage to Star Wars, and the marriage between the two, as, you know, on display in this episode of the Orville. Whereas Discovery, at least for my taste, the finale fell short. And it was too actiony, too Michael Bay-esque, explosion-gasmic, you know, pew-pew-pews all over the place. And I feel like the action set pieces in the Orville are just cut from a much, you know, better cloth, a higher grade of cloth, so to speak, where it's much better paced. It's, you know, the tension is palpable and the emotion behind it. You care about the characters that much more because you spent so much time getting to know all of them, not just one or two or three of you know, the main cast of characters as in Discovery and such like that. That will be where I'll draw the line as far as comparisons goes in discussing this finale, because I like both shows very much, and but I found this finale a lot more resounding, though I must say not entirely perfect at the same time. This finale existed by certain conceits. There were certain ingrained conceits that go with most television dramatic storytelling that is episodic in nature, where we didn't pick up right from where we left off necessarily, but we're picking up in the aftermath of where we left off. And I kind of felt like, you know, it was cut a little bit short to not have been able to get the band back together, a la the Blues Brothers, you know, whereas we're just sort of picking up with Gordon and Ed, and Kelly has already tracked down all the other key people that are going to be involved. Lamar and you know, the Dr. Claire and her kids and you know, Tala and everything like that. Like, they've already all been found. It's just left to track down Ed and Gordon. And that's where we start. And I kind of felt like, oh, well, we're already just in the thick of this. We've just been deposited in the thick of this. Who knows how long Kelly's been trying to track these people down, whether she was in contact with them from the Kaylon explosion that happened, the big attack, where in this timeline we find out because of their not going on another date, you know, all of these different aspects that had aligned in the original timeline with Ed being in command of the Orville, it didn't happen here. It all goes back to being turned down for that date, which I thought, again, is almost a little bit biting commentary Discovery, where everything revolves around Michael Burnham and whatever like that. That's the last I'm talking about Discovery. You know, no more comparisons to be laid out. But I did think, again, because it's surviving by that certain kind of conceit where there's aspects of the story that they can't necessarily display because of the time crunch of the episode, the length of the episode that it has to be fitted in, even with, you know, commercial shortage as this was shown. They still couldn't cover every single base. So there are aspects to the story between the beginning and the end where you're left as the viewer having to sort of fill in the blanks in your own mind. I mean, there was a little point My favorite, by the way, aspect of this episode coincides with one of my speculations. In talking about the previous, I had said, who knows where we're going to pick up with when this episode begins. Alara Katan could come back for all we know. Alara Katan came back for all we knew, and I loved it. But I was curious what was going on between she and Lamar. There was a very understated, like, maybe there was an Ed Kelly thing that happened to them in this alternate timeline now, where she couldn't trust anything he said and had to take whatever he would say with a grain of salt and such like that. And he even tries to save her, but she's not going to come. I mean, as soon as she was on screen, I let out an eep, a geeky eep, like, yes. That completely stoked me. I loved the fact that they had her back. But again, that whole aspect of, oh, there's some kind of thing that happened between them. What's this, sort of posturing back and forth verbally in the dialogue between them? You're kind of left to fill in the blanks of your own accord. You can make assumptions and speculations. And so that's kind of where we were left in the beginning of the episode, where, Kelly had already gotten most of the key players together. And the question was kind of overhanging for a little while for me. Like, okay, well, why did she wait so long? If it's 9 months into the Kalons having wiped out almost all of the life in the galaxy and everything, starting with Earth, what took her so long to try to track down and realize she had to track down Ed? But then, you start thinking about it and, you're filling in the blank as the viewer. Well, if in fact the Kalons were successful and Ed wasn't in command of the Orville, and everyone got split up because they were in the escape pods and everything like that, so tracking all of these people down, having to make all these maneuvers covertly in space effectively, that is now being overruled by the successful Kalons, who are going to take down any life that they encounter, any sentient life they encounter. It's going to take her some time to figure out where the hell Ed and Gordon are, or at least Ed. I mean, Gordon was just there because he's with Ed. Perpetually, he's always going to be there with Ed. If this Ed and Kelly decided to get together, Gordon was going to come along. He's going to have the guest room, that kind of thing. So again, there are certain conceits that were a little bit disappointing to me, where you kind of have to fill in the blank. What was it like for this Kelly to track down each one of these members, of the former Orville crew, to get them involved and persuade them that what she's saying is true, with the memory wipe not having taken effect and her making that poor choice, and what their ultimate end game was to right the timeline again. It would have been nice to get a little more hint of what that was like, what that journey was like, to align all of those steps. But barring that, it was really engrossing, seeing all these different perspectives on these characters, where they would find themselves if things had gone so awry as, the Kalons besting humanity and besting all these other species and cultures. Even the Moclan homeworld was destroyed, as we find out. And as evil and twisted, at least to the viewer's perspective, as Clyden has been since the word go, how conflictual that relationship dynamic is between Bortus and Clyden, I did feel a pang of sadness for Bortus when he has the crushing blow revealed to him that in this timeline, his world was destroyed, and likely Clyden and his son were killed with all of the members of their species. There was just a momentary hint of that, And so I like that there was, where it was failing in certain aspects, going back to that, again, television conceit of certain things had to be omitted for the purposes of telling the story. There were aspects that they did spend some time on that I really appreciated, going into more of the sort of sci-fi technobabble, aspects of this device that they were going to bring about the correction of time, and having to pinpoint Isaac in this timeline, who was still very, very twisted and sort of evil after being dismantled, apparently, by the Kalons, but his brain signature could be repurposed and found, and Lamar was all about doing that. And that whole aspect of he's got Isaac talking to him like this disembodied head, and when he's finally found what he needs, he's like, that's enough out of you. Turns his head away from him. That actually made me laugh out loud, and just all of the tension mounting as this version of Claire is going to be sent back. Now, I'm watching this, and the temporal mechanics of this, I'm falling a little behind of where we are in the pacing and plotting out of the episode, because I was incorrectly thinking at first, oh, they're going to send Claire back to the Orville before they mind wiped the younger Kelly and sent her back in time. Then I realized moments later, as I'm thinking that, like, because I started questioning, well, wouldn't that be awkward if there's two Claires on the Orville? But then I was like, duh, temporal mechanics, get yourself up to pace here. They can't do that because that aspect of the timeline has been wiped out, you know. So naturally, they had to go back to the focal point of incursion, where younger Kelly had been brought to the future and then had been placed back. And it's at that moment where she was placed back, this is where they have to correct the mind wipe, make sure that it was, you know, completed because of this enzyme or whatever it is. You can call it a MacGuffin, Deus Ex Machina, whatever you want to call it for the purposes of completing the story. But, you know, it was right down to it was literally right down to the wire. And I was just kind of like, it was just kind of unexpected to me how we just sort of end with you know, Kelly telling Ed, hey, yeah, let's go on a second date, and she smiles warmly, and they're really, again, it's that television conceit where there are certain aspects omitted. We didn't need it, though. We didn't need to follow up with the Orville and know that, hey, everything's back to normal, everything's okay. It is implied because now it happened the way it originally happened, and for all intents and purposes, the last sort of modern episode event, you know, the modern timeline as far as the Orville goes, all of that, it's back to where it was. You know, so if we do get a third season, we're going to be picking up like none of that ever happened. All this alternate timeline, you know, kerfuffle didn't actually happen, and I couldn't be more pleased with it as a finale. Again, it was not pitch perfect. Those knowing omissions of the story, aspects of the story that I wish we could have seen a little more, you know, aspects of and things like that, they weren't absolutely necessary for the purposes of enjoying the story and following it and all that kind of stuff. I think it would have been a little more added flavor had they included, you know, aspects like that. But for the format of, you know, the allotted time, they had to fit it all within. I think it was really expertly done, and again, just all of those visual cues of like Star Trek and Star Wars, and the score that just stood out to me. I mean, there were so many little beats and little you know, melodic notes and things like that I'm like, oh my god, that's you know, a direct line homage back to that asteroid field sequence in Empire Strikes Back, which was all mirrored here visually, you know, as I say, and aspects of the score when they're lifting the Orville out of the ocean and they break through orbit and everything like that, and just the crescendo of music was reminding me of some of the best parts of the Star Trek feature film scores and things like that. So at least in a look and feel and vibe and overall story, overall plot line, I was just really resounded by this and then some. It was a really, really enjoyable finale. And again, you know, going back to what I said about if we pick up with season 3, hey, Fox, give us season 3, give us the announcement. At least as of the time of this recording, I haven't heard nada, zero zilch nada, about a confirmation on a third season. And they're out of their friggin' minds if they're not going to give it to us, quite frankly. I want it. I want it now. I want it, at least if I can't have the third season right now, I want it announced officially that it's been approved, it's been greenlit. Because it would be a really poor choice for them to let this be it, you know, for all intents and purposes. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of the season 2 finale of the Orville, if you've seen it as well. The Road Not Taken. Thankfully, we did take this road. They did greenlight this series, and we've got 2 brilliant seasons thus far of it. And I can only hope we have more, you know, just off on the next horizon. And so yeah, love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. I'd love to hear whatever you have to say about it, criticisms, exaltations, all that good stuff. As long as you are respectful in sharing your own opinion and are respectful of others if they happen to disagree. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to consider supporting my channel, please have a look at my PayPal support link posted both in the description as well as the comments below, where you have opportunities very much akin to Patreon to set up a monthly recurring contribution, a one-time only kind of thing. Send me a personal message alongside any contribution you see fit to send my way, requesting topics I may discuss in the future, ask for shoutouts, or make recommendations of things I may check out and would inevitably shout you out down the line if I happen to discuss discuss, and anything you saw fit to send my way would be 2 thumbs up for me in securing my longevity on YouTube for the foreseeable future, and it would just be very much appreciated if you took the time. And so yeah, until we get a confirmation of a 3rd season or something else Orville related, I guess I'll see you when I see you. I hope you enjoyed this video, that it finds you well, and I'll catch you all later.